All right, let's have a look at auto registration using tgexpert. Okay, first let's go to auto register, and the first thing we need to do before we even start registration is to generate parameters. So here we are at the parameter generator module. Before we begin to register the accounts, we first need to generate the parameters by which the registration will occur. And so this is where the parameter generator comes in. Okay, first I want to draw your attention to app ID and hash. This is where you'll be entering the addresses on which the accounts will be registered. They come in pairs, and currently tgexpert works on the 4th and 6th pair. You can find these pairs either on blb.team or in our messenger group. The forum has a lot of information on how to register, so if you have any questions, you can go ahead and take a look over there. During generation, it is very important that you set every single parameter, and most importantly, that you set every parameter in the correct format. Thankfully, you can just check the forums. You can find anything that you have questions about over there, and for everything else, there is always Google. Moving on. Once we've set all the parameters, you see down here this little box that says Add to Database. We don't need to click it because we're actually generating a new database right now. So once you've set all the parameters in the correct format, for example, list of devices. So device, device, and device. Once these have been set, they'll be entered, randomized, and then generated in this new database. And it's the same for system versions as well. So you enter versions, versions, versions. Oh, I missed an R there. Hold on. All of this will be randomized later. Make sure not to leave any extra spaces where they shouldn't be, and also don't leave any empty lines, because if you're going to leave it like this, then one of your entries when it's generated will just be an empty entry. And this might cause some problems during the registration process. So once again, we don't click to add to database because right now we're generating our first database. So only after you've generated a database can you then add to an existing one. So we're going to leave that ticked off, and the last thing we need to do is to choose the number of generations. For example, you type in 5,000 and then you click to generate the database. All right, next we have to choose the service on which we'll be registering. But honestly, in terms of settings, they are pretty much all the same. So I'm just going to show you how to do it on one of them. So let's go ahead and choose SMS Activate. You see here that SMS Activate is the service that we'll be using. And then next we have the API key. This is the key that comes from our SMS service so that interactions go through the API. So acquisition of numbers, giving out codes, etc., etc. You can find this API key in your personal workspace on the website that you're using, like for example, SMS Activate. Okay, next up we have names and gender. You can either choose to have the program generate these names, in which case you should definitely choose the gender, or use an existing directory. I personally recommend using an existing directory. This will greatly reduce the amount of processing power your computer will have to use. And here we're going to choose the gender. I always choose random. So I have a bunch of English names, a bunch of English last names, random genders, everything gets mixed up and it's all random. So that way no patterns emerge from this. So I don't really have a gender preference, male or female, it makes no difference to me. If your directory has all female names, then obviously choose female. If your directory has only male names, obviously choose male. Okay, next we need to set the path to the database that we generated in the previous step. All right, the pathway has been set. And then we have to click Get Data so that the program gets the balance from the SMS service. Next, we have to choose the country that we'll be registering. Today, we'll be choosing Romania. And then we once again click Get Data so that we can pull up possible operators. It's best to leave it on any operator so that way you're not tied down to a specific one. So just go ahead and set it to None, any operator. Then we go one step lower and click on this Get Data so the program can pull up the price per SMS. Also here, you can see that the program is showing you the number of available numbers. This isn't always an accurate figure. Sometimes it will just say 0, but then during registration, it'll give you an actual number. So you don't really have to pay that much attention to this figure right now. Sometimes the opposite can happen, where it'll say, for example, 320, but actually there are no available numbers at all. Okay, the next step is to set the SMS timeout. Personally, I recommend setting it at anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes, so 120 seconds, 150, 180. This is just to account for the difference in timing, because sometimes the code from the operator comes in a little bit faster, a little bit slower, so I like to set it at a nice 120. Number of registration tasks refers to the number of accounts that we want registered. And then we have free price, which you can learn more about on the SMS Activate website. If you have it in your profile, it should be available at level 7. Then you can turn it on and then set the maximum price. And of course, if you don't have it, you can just turn it off. So this option is only available to those who have free price on the SMS Activate website. Set 2FA is when you want two-factor authentication to be set as soon as you register your accounts. If you turn on Forced Reset 2FA, then if you get some numbers that have two-factor authentication, the program will try to get rid of them. Personally, I always leave this function off, and the same thing for Force Request a Voice as well. This is to exclude any numbers that would use a voice-activated password protection, but the thing is that most countries, operators, and SMS services don't support either of these. Okay, next we have Disable Statistics, which if you click on this means that you will not have a saved database of all of your activity. Click this at your own risk because you're going to be missing a lot of valuable information. Stuff like which number, was the code received, did it get successfully registered, etc, etc, etc. I'll show you what that looks like later, but I recommend keeping this off. And lastly, we have thread count. Now, in the case of a service like SMS Activate, there's really no need to set any more than 35 to 40 streams. They have a limit on the number of streams they can support. So for example, if you set it at 500 accounts and then 10 streams, then the program is going to simultaneously take 10 numbers and start registering accounts. For this example, we've only set it at 3 accounts, so we can just set it at 3 streams because there's only 3 accounts. Alright, all that's left to do is to click Start to start registering. Let's go! So on the right here, we have the program activity log. And we see that the proxy has connected the numbers and the program got them. Okay, you see how sometimes it says wait phone number from SMS service? If the program is waiting to find the number, so for example, if you set it at 5 streams and you see 5 concurrent messages waiting for phone number, there's no need to panic, this is normal. If you set it at 100 accounts and 10 streams, if it just can't seem to find those numbers, it's not going to stop until it finds those numbers. Next, the program is going to filter out certain numbers that it finds, for example, ones that have been flooded already. It's automatically going to check the number, reject it, then move on to the next one. It's also going to reject any number that has already been registered to Telegram and then blocked. Once again, it'll check, reject, and move on to the next. Alright, we're seeing some codes already come in. So you see the program has received the code. Now it's set up two-factor authentication. Then the same for the next number and the next, and there you go, successful registration. Once it's done, we can open up the saved database where we have all the relevant statistics. That's of course if you didn't disable this feature with Disable Statistics. And so now we can go into this window here where we can look at all the relevant information about each number. You click on Statistic, and then you have to go over to Data. And we see here what happened to each of the numbers. You see the first one, code not send. That means that the program didn't send the code for whatever reason. Either the number was already flooded, or it was already blocked on Telegram. But then the next 2 numbers were successfully registered. So you see the program automatically checks for unwanted conditions, rejects it, and then moves on to the next one until it reaches the indicated correct number. Sometimes a number gets rejected for reasons like it already has two-factor authentication installed. And so with those kinds of things, you really should check with your SMS service why exactly the numbers are getting rejected. Because you're getting the money taken from you, but obviously you're not getting the successful registration. So I highly recommend checking with your SMS service, specifically what they need in case you get numbers with two-factor authentication. Okay, so basically we're done. We see that we have successfully registered 3 accounts, like we indicated. Now it's time to move on to active accounts, where we can, for example, set up usernames for all of our newly registered accounts. As we can see, they're all currently active. But here you have to be very, very careful because the quality of your registration will depend entirely on the parameters you set and also the proxy that you'll be registering on. The program will automatically tell you some important pieces of information. For example, if the number has a spam block set on it, including geo-spam block. Geo-spam block is a special type of spam block that gets put on certain geo accounts, but then gets automatically removed within 3 to 7 days after registration. So I really recommend that you pay attention to this because what this means is that most geo accounts really only become active after about 3 days. Something else we can do, we can log in any one of these accounts. So let's go ahead and take the first one. And we're going to do this by receiving an authorization code in the desktop client. There it is. So first we go to choose action and then get authorization code. Okay, we click on start messaging. Then we can copy the number, copy that number in, and then here we need to get the code. So the program is going to bypass the two-factor authentication to get the code. And there we go, task complete. So now we just copy this code, click next, then copy the cloud password, and we're in. It's just that easy. And as we can see, we're getting a notification here because we already checked this account for spam block, and this message is just informing us that there is a spam block installed, etc., etc., etc. But the important thing is that the account is fully registered. So here we can check the name, the number, all generated, all good. We can also check our other accounts through the Telegram client just to check that they have in fact been properly registered. So if we put it in here, then yeah, you see that this is a real account. Real name, real number, everything. And we can check this one as well. Let's put it in. Yep, there it is. And once again, just as a reminder, just make sure to check your accounts for geo-spam block. It usually falls off within 3 or so days, but just so you can keep track of which ones are active and which ones are not. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Good luck, everybody.